This may be the biggest thing that's ever happened.
Wherever there is injustice, you will find us. Wherever there is suffering, we'll be there. Wherever liberty is threatened, you will find
the three AmiVO's. Dave McRae, Garnet Williams, Mike Pongracz. Separately, they are humble Canadian voiceover superstars. Together, they are the three AmiVO's.
Ladies and gentlemen,
here we go.
And now, the AmiVO's and Friends Super-Funtastic Happy Hour VOdcast.
Yeah.
hit it.
So as I was saying,
Yeah. I've been waiting for 7 years for you to finish the sentence.
Well,
I know,
I've never in my life been a part of such a dramatic pause. I mean, it's really unreal.
Did you run out of batteries?
if I have
don't know.
something important to say, I will not be rushed.
It's true. It's true. That's true.
So welcome to the AmiVO's and Friends Super-Funtastic Happy Hour VOdcast.
Wait, that's my line.
I'm sorry, I stepped on your line.
Things change.
Yeah, over 7 years, things change. So I'm Garnet Williams, of course. In front of me, you always, I'm doing exactly what you would do. To my left is AmiVO Dave McRae. To my right is AmiVO Mike Pongracz. And we are collectively known as the three AmiVO's.
That's right.
That's right.
It's nice to be back.
Yeah, no kidding.
I still have my
you know.
toque. I still have my toque. I should have worn it today.
Oh,
actually.
we all should have worn the uniform.
And by the way, before we go any further, Peter O'Connell, your hat, your toque is in the mail. And our apologies to Matt Damon. Yeah.
Well, wait. Did you send Peter's toque to Buffalo, or did you send it?
That's what it is.
Right.
That's
we
what
sent
it
it.
is.
We did send it. It went to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Damn.
So that's
You
the
know-
problem right there.
Peter, actually, just because we're mentioning our good friend Peter, he very kindly sent me a text yesterday because I posted a recent commercial that I'd done, and several people online where I posted it on Facebook and other social media said, hey, nice, way to go. Peter actually texted me and complimented me on it. I didn't know it was Peter because I didn't recognize the phone number.
Yeah.
So I'm like, thank you for the compliment. Who dis? and it was my favorite Buffalonian, as he referred to himself, Peter O'Connell. So shout out to Peter.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So anyway, hello, Peter. And yes, I knew as soon as we started talking about the toque, that would be the one thing he'd say. Where's my toque?
It's in Buffalo.
Yep.
It's in Buffalo.
So how have you guys been? Where should we start?
Well, let's start with why this is happening, because this is just typical us.
Yes.
So Garnet, please tell the wonderful people why we're doing this.
So I will. But first, for those who might not know who the hell we are, we're just three Canadian voice actors who were friends and acquaintances, and we're bumping into each other at auditions, and we got together and decided to do a podcast and spend some time and have some fun interviewing people in the industry, other voice actors, directors, casting people, what have you. And we did like about 20 episodes of the podcast over 3 or so years. Started about 10 years ago.
We weren't very diligent.
No.
It's about a podcast every 6 months.
Quality over quantity.
Our appearance was spotty at best, but as you said, the quality. And we did that, started about 10 years ago. And then 7 years ago, we just stopped. We came on the scene. We did what we set out to do. We made sure that VO rates were fair and equitable for all. We fought for demo costs to be affordable. We brought peace to union and non-union actors. And then on the seventh day, we rested.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
And we decided, you know what? There's nothing left for us to do. Okay.
That's it. But there's been an awakening.
Yeah, and what happened was
I sense an awakening.
I was
force.
Mike knows I've been cleaning up my computer. I've been finding like stuff archived in folder and subfolder here and there. And I came across one of our episodes and some outtakes and stuff, and I got nostalgic. So we, despite the fact we've done nothing with it, we still have a Three AmiVO's Facebook page. So I visited it and I just looked at the picture, the profile picture, and I'm like, oh, well, that should probably be changed because it hasn't been touched in 7 years. So I just changed the picture. Now, what I didn't realize was that when I did that, it it basically notified all followers to the page that something had happened, and it reposted with that picture our last post, which basically said, hang on, a new episode is coming out in like 48 hours. And that was like what we posted when we did our last episode 7 years ago.
And then I immediately texted where I'm like, did I miss the memo?
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I saw that and I thought, well, do they have a new band member that I don't know about? Or
yeah, remember when there was
have I been replaced?
Boys, I swear I just didn't even realize that it was going to do that. But you weren't the only one, Mike, who contacted me. A couple other people sent me private messages like, are you getting the group back together? And other people were commenting on the AmiVO's page, which again hasn't happened in 7 years, saying, oh, I love you guys. This is so great.
What does it say? What does it say about the podcasting situation in VO where people are like, oh my God, they're coming back? Heralded by a small percentage that still remember us from back in the day.
I was just going to say, hang on a second.
I will say though, I mean, it's, back when we were doing the podcast, it was still relatively new. I mean, George and Dan had their podcast weekly, and they were diligent.
They were smart.
They were diligent.
They were smart. They did like really like intelligent, informational kind of podcast.
Yeah, we were just a couple of sarcastic, cynical bastards who, shone the light on sort of the darker regions of VO.
Well, and also
use it as a tool to rant.
But I mean, our sort of presentation was very much like a morning radio show. You know what I mean? And so that's really what it was. Is just a bunch of, guys bantering about the industry, and then we bring on a guest and we talk to them and all that kind of stuff. But very free flowing, very sort of unscripted in a lot of ways, and just kind of like something you could listen to in the morning.
We had guests on. I think part of our modus operandi originally was to get people on the podcast that you wouldn't see or hear on other podcasts.
Yes,
for the most part. I mean, because back then it was, you had your, the same old, I guess is one way of putting it. So we got to shine a light on some Canadian voice talent, some, some people who were at the, early stages of their superstardom. Eric.
Well,
Bauza.
yeah, we also had,
yes, that's right.
We had Cliff Zellman on, but that was when Cliff was just, that's when Cliff Zellman was just Cliff Zellman, not Cliff Zellman. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
a lot of those people over the last 10 years have become mainstays of workshops and conferences and stuff like this. But back then they were known within circles, but they weren't as well respected and as well known as they are now, because they're awesome and they've just like built that following. So we were lucky we got to talk with some of these people when they had the time to give us, and to share with us, because a lot of them, they're so damn busy now. They might not be able to.
Oh, that's and good. Like I said, good luck getting Eric Bauza now on this podcast.
Oh, geez, Eric Bauza.
Although
so
we
proud of that guy.
Could, because I think I've funded enough of his side venture at Retro Kid,
as of
nostalgic clothing, as you have too, Garnet. So, by the way, great stuff, Eric and Steve. Yeah, top shelf. RetroKid.ca. Cheap, shameless plug.
I just went to the because we also have an AmiVO's YouTube channel where all those podcasts were, and the YouTube channel is still there. Not too many subscribers. That's all right. The feeling's mutual. But nonetheless, some of the guests we had were Mark Grau, David Godfrey, Marilyn Wisner. We also had. Yes, that's right. Anne Ganguza. We had Stevie Valance, of course, Eric Bauza, Matt Cowrick, Cliff Zellman, John Bailey, yes, Graham Spicer, Jody Krangle.
Peter O'Connell was on there too.
He was. Peter O'Connell. Rest in peace, the late, great Patrick Sweeney.
Yeah, and I think, wasn't Patrick our first interview?
He was.
He was.
Yeah.
God love it. I'd miss that guy. That's probably one of the saddest things in between when we did our last podcast and this, is that, some members of the AmiVO family no longer with us. Pat Sweeney specifically was such a joy. And I went back and I listened to that interview, and it made me sad. I would argue that he and Brad Venable were probably the two most beloved VO people. I mean, that I've ever encountered, aside from you two guys.
Well,
not really,
sorry,
but
it doesn't count.
But universally loved by all, and Patrick Sweeney especially.
100%.
Agreed.
So that's where we are, guys. We started this little dog and pony show 10 years ago, and then we're back here doing this because I screwed up and changed a picture on our Facebook page, and we thought, hey, it might be fun. And it's been 7 years. I went back and listened to a couple of the old shows, and I thought, like, why not? Why don't we just get together and see if we can catch up and have some fun?
And I mean, the industry has changed quite a bit since we did our little dog and pony show.
The world, we had a pandemic in our absence.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Man, I feel so like there's a lot.
Yeah, when you actually think about it.
I mean, just small things, like starting small things VO wise. I mean, when we were last together, I mean, it was the voices.com knives and pitchfork,
right?
Which I don't know. Again, I'm not as dialed into the VO community as I maybe was many years ago, but I don't get a sense that it's as big a deal. I think the next generation of VO talent has kind of come along and done their own thing, and it's no longer a big deal.
Yeah.
Plus the whole pay scale got ridiculous. I mean, I remember when we started, it was, I think, $199, and you joined, you got your garden variety of garbage auditions, and it was, couple bucks here and there. Then came the buy this tier where you get special auditions. And then if you spend more, you get even more special auditions. It started to turn into like this Jerry Jones kind of, or not Jerry Jones. What's his name? The guy from the New England
Jerry
Patriots.
Jerry Jones. And here I am nodding my head. Oh, yeah.
Jerry Reed, Michael. Jerry Reed.
No, the whole, massage parlor for an extra $5. You can get the happy finish.
Oh, don't say $5.
Oh, sorry. My bad. They're about as equal as far as, the chain of command goes. It got to be a point where you literally paid to play. Yeah. And I know there are a handful, and I think it's almost like the crypto and NFT thing. If you got in early, you made some money. Mm-hmm. You made some contacts, some clients, because we know some voice actors who did quite well on the pay to plays and turned those into steady clients and whatever. But for every 5 or 10 that did all right, there's 10,000 that are submitting 150 auditions and getting scraps, if that. So
I see it all the time. In the 7 years I started coaching, and we can touch on that in a bit. But I work with a lot of students who tried the P2P model, going for just the base membership and getting no ROI whatsoever, and finding it frustrating that, to your point, hundreds of auditions, nothing to show for it except the cost of membership.
It's so saturated. I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've never done the P2P thing. I'm very fortunate that my career was successful enough that I didn't need to do that. Thankfully,
that's a lie, Dave, because I recall that at one point during one of our shows, we were the number 1, 2, and 3 top ranking voice actors on voices.com.
We have receipts.
Oh yes, I remember.
I forget
that.
Who was that? Who that was? Who
I don't want to name names, but I remember who it was, and let's just say it didn't last for long.
Nonetheless, though, yes, that was, of course, I do remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah, but you never did. You were never.
I never did. No, I never paid to play. I think I did have a profile on there. I'd signed up years and years ago.
I think everybody did at one point.
Yeah, but I didn't. It was good for your SEO to have a free profile on every P2P.
This was like 2007 or 8 or something like that. But I never had any demos on there. I just had like my name and a photo, because then the work through my agent began to pick up, and I never needed to do it. And that's not, I don't mean that in a condescending way at all. I was very fortunate that I didn't need to struggle in that sphere, because it is so saturated. And
we also
like
got in at a time. We also got in at a time before that. So I think if you go back and look at our trajectory versus, other voice actors, we were pretty fortunate in that we started almost right off the bat in a situation where you auditioned at studios, you worked for, production houses directly. We built our sort of names on the ground in actual studios when that was still a thing.
That's
yes.
what you did
and then
back
came
then.
along.
I was just going to say that it's so true. And, I look at how long I've been, this year will be my 23rd year in the entertainment business.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
because I started in 2001. At that time, I mean, social media wasn't a thing. And so
it was very early. Yeah.
Very early. And although it wouldn't be like, coming up in voiceover in the 80s, it still was at the very sort of tail end of auditioning in the studio, actually driving down, and it still happens from time to time. But I notice now, like, the vast majority, like that changeover has really happened now, where I think it's once in a blue moon somebody may want you to come down and audition in person, but I really think the industry now has caught on to we can save a lot of money by not doing that.
A lot of money and a lot of time.
That's right.
Part.
Yeah.
But I mean that definitely, because now I've joked with Garnet about this many times, is that so I look at what other voice actors do and what they post and the amount of work they do on social media and the marketing and all this stuff, and I go, like, should I be doing something? But it's a different time and a different place, and where I'm at in my career also versus what sort of the sort of business that I've built, in that it was basically back then, it was built on reputation as opposed to having to go out and try and hustle for work. You made connections, you made connections with your network. And this is the one thing that I think I've said this to one of you guys, is that I think this is lost now on the newer generation of voice talent, is that the notion of building relationships and building a network and building building relationships as opposed to building a client list. I think that's a lost art now.
I think you're right.
It's harder to do, though, because pre-COVID, we were getting more and more at-home auditions, and during COVID, everything was at home. And after COVID, as much after COVID as we are now, a lot of studios aren't going back to the pre-COVID way of doing things because, like you said, they're saving money, they're saving time. So without being able to go in for all those cattle call auditions that we hated going in for, at least it got you breathing the same air with the people that make the decisions in the studio, and you could spend a couple minutes introducing yourself and maybe forging the beginning of a relationship. And after they see you multiple times, but it doesn't happen like that anymore. So the only time you get to see them and build those connections, build those relationships is if you happen to book the job and they bring you in person. And I've noticed even some of those, they're preferring to do over Source Connect rather, as long as your home studio is up to speed. Because again, it's a time saver for them.
And speaking of things that have changed in the 7 or 10 years since we've been doing this, I still remember the barrier to entry back in 2003 was still pretty steep. And it wasn't exactly like everybody and their mother had a studio at home that they could, convince real studios that no, just let me record from here. It's just as good. Like now the technology, the price point for most of the gear, I think even to a certain extent, what's considered acceptable is much different than it was 10 years, 15 years ago.
Totally.
No, you're absolutely right. And just to piggyback on the last thing you were talking about there in terms of connections and relationships, it's so true because, look, I mean, there's a lot of people that can do what we can do. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of talented individuals out there. There's also a lot of people that, it's a hard truth, but you can teach technique, but you can't teach talent, right?
There
Something
it is.
I always used to say
That was always a Davism.
But it's true, and it's a harsh reality. But it's a voiceover takes talent, and it doesn't mean you can't learn and get better. But having there's a lot of talented people, and so what it comes down to is there's a lot of wonderfully talented male voice actors out there that can absolutely do what the three of us can do, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So why would they pick us over somebody else, right? When it comes down to it, that's where those relationships and the connections come in, right? You foster those relationships, you nurture those relationships, because there is a lot of people that can do what you do. And so you want to be able to, be top of mind because they love working with you. They like you and they know that you get the job done and you get it done on time and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to say, no, it's absolutely true. It's that connection, that fostering and nurturing those relationships is so important and can, in a lot of cases, be the difference between getting the call and not getting the call.
Absolutely.
It's not, 100%.
And I mean, it's obviously it's a whole different ballgame depending on where you are, geographically speaking.
Yep.
That and there's also a mindset because you do have the different levels of voice actor as far as what they want out of it. Very few are just in it for the craft anymore.
I
think
point.
That's not that we were, just in it for the craft. But I think now there is a definite emphasis on the financial side and how it's become more of a business than a craft. I mean, it was the success blueprint was always make sure you run your voiceover business as a business.
Yeah.
I just find that it's gotten to be very financially driven to the point where, again, back to the whole idea that people are just booking jobs or they're booking gigs or they're finding the next lily pad to jump onto that will pay them some money. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think you can jump onto fewer lily pads, make that same amount or reasonably close, just by making those connections and fostering those relationships. And this goes back to like, am I doing something wrong compared to, I'm auditioning 50 times a day. I'm doing 30 jobs a day. And like, no, that's at my age now, that's not what I want out of life. It's not what I want out of my career.
It's funny. I think back to back to the mid 2000s and I'd be going to the cattle calls and I'd be like, y'all be there. And now I'm just like,
It's an age thing.
I think it's an age thing. Yeah.
And it's also,
and it's an experience thing. That's just going to say it's exactly it. I mean, I've been doing voiceover full time now since 2006. And so it's a long time. And, you get to a point, and anybody in our position knows this. You get to a point and hopefully you can get to a point where you can be, picky and choosy with what you want to do or what you want to audition for. And because not everybody can do that. And there's still people that want to audition for everything, but I can't do everything. Nobody can do it all. Nobody can do everything. Mm. And so there are times where I will get an audition and I'll look at it and I'll go, I probably could do it, but they're probably going to find somebody better.
Yeah. You're just not
like there's, I just know that there's 10 other people they're going to hear that are probably going to be way better than me. And so I don't audition for it.
And there's also, times have changed. there was a time where you could do certain characters for an animation. You could audition for everything. You could throw on an accent. You could throw on, you can't do that anymore. The whole, and
what are you talking about? I still do it. No,
for the good, I would say, is that certain productions and especially in the animation field, opted to go authentic, and I think that's great because you bring in a broader spectrum of talent.
You create the opportunities, which is great.
Absolutely. So, which definitely that's way different than back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. To your point, Dave, there's a lot of stuff that just comes and it's like,
Yeah, well, it's not that I read it and I'm like, I think I could do this. Like, it's not totally out of my wheelhouse, but I'm like, I think there are voice actors that would be better equipped for it. And I sincerely mean that. I look at this and I go, nah, that's not really, and then, there are times where I'm like, oh, that's totally me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And whereas I think, 20 years ago, I was auditioning for everything, even stuff that I wasn't suited for.
Well, that's right? The clarity and the honesty that comes with, having that experience, with that, the maturity that comes, with those many years of building your career. And to an extent as well, we're not only are we, kind of stupid when we're just starting out and young and inexperienced, we're also hungrier.
Yes. We are full of piss and vinegar.
Yeah. As
they would say.
I listened to my very first demo from 2003 or 4, whatever it was. I remember at the time thinking, this is great. Oh, it's rough. It's rough, but it's so great to hear it and, look back on it with love. I mean, I sit back and I go, wow, this is so not good, but it's so cool, But
again, we were young, we were naive. We were also in the business at a time where we didn't have access to the materials that new voice actors have. You didn't have a cache of YouTube videos or Facebook forums.
Well, YouTube didn't exist.
Yeah, you didn't have all these things to sort of peel back the layers or pull back the curtain and show you what it really was. So, we were kind of making it up as we were going, or faking it till we making it.
And I think we were the last generation. Like, there's the generation that obviously, would send their auditions out on cassette tape, right? In the 80s and things like that. And I think we were the last to send our submissions in terms of demos. That's what I mean. Not auditions, demos. Thank you. On cassette tapes years and years ago. And I think we were the last to send out our demos on CD, because I remember sending them to agents on CD, mailing them. And that would have been around, like 2001, 2, 3. And then of course, the industry changed forever when you could actually send an MP3. So
the Fraunhofer codec of MP3.
So
excuse me, the world.
We're getting dangerously close, fellas. This is an interesting discussion, but we're getting dangerously close to back in my day territory.
That's true.
So let's step 20 years since we started this,
edit this out,
this amazing journey. And I'm kind of curious because we talk, we like comment on each other's posts and stuff, but it's been 7 years. What have you guys been doing?
Yeah, Dave, you really...
I know what Mike's been doing. Mike's always in his studio voicing shit, but Dave, you always had a very interesting.
You had
passion.
Aspirations to do something else, and you actually have done it.
Yeah, you had a passion
multiple times,
and you were doing it back when we were working together. But you have like ramped up your game in the last 7 years. So you want to share that?
Well, I'm a stripper, so no.
Magic Dave.
I've really ramped up my game now. You guys should come out and see me. Bring the wives; they'd love it.
$6.99 steak special. Okay, that's good.
Oh yeah, right there by the stage. Just have your steaks and coffee.
No, but seriously, Dave, you have done some very cool things
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. So yes. Oh God, how do I give the Cole's Notes version? So
you've always been a horror buff.
I've always been a horror buff, and
specifically Mike Myers and Halloween, if I'm not mistaken.
Michael Myers and Halloween. Michael Myers. No, but I've always been big horror fan.
I'm on a casual basis with serial killers. Okay,
my first love is movies. I've always wanted to make movies, and of course, your plan doesn't always go the way you want. And of course, after college, I got into the acting and then the voiceover and all that kind of stuff. And I have had and still have a great career as a voice actor. But when I turned 40 in 2019, I thought, well, I'm not old, but I'm not young. And I'm like, if I want to really kind of have any sort of career as a filmmaker, as a director, as a producer, I probably should start really thinking about it now. I mean, I'm 40, right? And so, but I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. And I've made small sort of, nothing that I would say was professional, but small short films on the side. And I've worked on set and things like that in a variety of capacities. And so then I thought, you know what? One night I was watching the great Canadian movie Black Christmas, and I thought, wow, it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's got a great ambiguous ending, and it doesn't need a sequel. But I thought, I wonder, what if it had one? Like, what if it's had 2 remakes but never a sequel? And so myself and my best friend of 30 years, Bruce Dale, shout out to Bruce, who also works in the film industry, he and I got together and we thought, you know what, why don't we make a tribute film of sorts, a tribute fan film, not for profit, of course, because we don't own the intellectual property, but really make a real film. So we decided to write a script, make a sequel to the original Black Christmas. Who better to do it than 2 Canadians from Toronto? It's a Canadian movie shot in Toronto. So this is 2020 now. We launch, really, again, the Cole's Notes version here, or this could become the Happy Dave Hour podcast. And so in 2020, we launched an Indiegogo campaign, which is a crowdfunding platform. And we reached our production budget goal, which was 60,000 Canadian dollars. And we went off and we shot the first half of our story, and the name of the film is It's Me, Billy. And that might sound funny to some out there, but if you're a Black Christmas fan, it makes total sense. And that's what we did. And it was nominated for a CSC award, which is the Canadian Society of Cinematographers, which is amazing. It did not win, but it won in our hearts. But just to be nominated for something like that is wild. I mean, I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of DPs that are working on like major stuff, like major Hollywood shit, you know what I mean? And so that was really cool to have our little film nominated for that. And it was really awesome. So myself and Bruce, and it got a lot of buzz. It also got us, myself and Bruce were talking to a producer that works for a studio. I will leave the studio nameless at the moment, but it's a studio you would know. And because they were so impressed with what we were able to do for $60,000, they're like, this looks like you shot it for $6 million. And so that was really awesome. So then we decided to finish the story because it ends on a cliffhanger. And so we got together last year, I guess it was. Yeah. And we fleshed out chapter 2. We launched an Indiegogo campaign just last year for chapter 2, and we raised 150,000 Canadian dollars.
Nice. Look at you.
God.
Yeah, we shot the movie in November, chapter 2. It's in post-production now. This year, 2024, is the 50th anniversary of the original Black Christmas. It was first released in Toronto on October the 11th, 1974. We are planning on releasing chapter 2 on October the 11th, 2024 to coincide with the 50th anniversary.
That's perfect.
And although these are fan films, they are totally pro. They are shot with cinematic grade cameras, with professional actors. Chapter 2 was a full-scale union shoot, professional crew.
Oh, amazing.
I mean, it's the real deal. And so, because if you want to play with the big boys and you want a portfolio to show what you can do, you have to shoot real films. You know what I mean? You got to raise the money and actually go out and do it. And so, yeah, that takes up a lot of my time, but it's awesome. And I'm so proud of everybody involved. And I'm so proud of my friend Bruce, who just worked his ass off on chapter 2, handling a lot of the production manager side of things and dealing with SAG and with ACTRA. And it's a whole new experience from this side of the camera, and but a lot of fun. And we launched a teaser trailer for chapter 2 in December, so it's already up on YouTube. You just type in "It's Me, Billy" chapter 2 and it'll pop up. But we're very excited about it, and it's the completion of the story, so it's like one movie but with 2 separate parts. So chapter 2 picks up immediately where chapter 1 left off, kind of thing. So that's on the filmmaking side. That's sort of what I've been dealing with. And also I played Freddy Krueger in
I was going to mention that. Yeah,
I was waiting.
We cannot let that one go.
We can't. No, I was because I have a YouTube channel myself. And that is, of course, you have a YouTube channel where you talk about movies, you make connections, you meet other filmmakers and people. And I was asked in 2019, actually, but the pandemic put a wedge into this for a bit, if I wanted to play Freddy Krueger. And they did the whole prosthetic makeup in the makeup chair for 5 hours every day and the whole thing. And what an experience. We shot it in Phoenix, Arizona in November of 2022. That movie was released online in 2023, at the end of last August. And I got to go to a convention and sign for it and just the whole thing. I mean, it was just that's definitely been some of the coolest part of my career, of what's gone on in the last 7 years. And I'm so thankful and so appreciative of the love and support. And it is I will say this, it is an absolutely humbling experience when you have something you're so passionate about and you go online and you don't know if anybody's going to believe in you or want to see it. And all these people come out to help fund your project. It's moving. It really is moving to be able to see this, because a lot of these people are not just doing it because they want to see a Black Christmas sequel. They're doing it because they believe in you and they want to see you accomplish your dreams. And it is one of the most moving, humbling experiences of my life to see that kind of love and support. And the feedback from Freddie, of course, has been great. And so that. I mean, I can talk about the voiceover stuff, but
the stripping.
But you've done a bunch of. You really leaned into animation, though, on the voice side.
I did, yeah. So I'm still,
because I know you're doing a ton of kids productions. I keep seeing.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me. Yeah. So as you guys know, I mean, I had a strong portfolio in terms of like commercial and promo and narration, all that kind of stuff. But my animation side was, not really there. So in and about at the time, I think we actually stopped doing the podcast in 2017, 18, I really leaned into the animation side. And so I'm on 3 shows at the moment. I do a bunch of characters and additional voices for Super Wings. And then I haven't heard anything about a 3rd season yet, but I play Mr. Crumple on Luna Chip and Inky, which is really cool. And then I'm doing a show right now called Lana Longbeard, and just great writing, a lot of fun. Dee Shipley directs that. And so yes, I had been leaning heavily into the animation side and trying to build that up. So the voiceover is still going great, but there's been a heavy focus as well on the film, and
awesome. Nice.
I'm just going to continue on and see where it takes me. But anyways, enough about me.
This is where we'd break for AmiVO and Friends iceberg tip, but we don't have those anymore. So 7 years ago, we did our last show. Mm-hmm. Our last podcast from the top of the Apple Records building in London. You were all there. And it's the last time we performed on podcast together.
So on behalf of the entire group, I'd like to thank you.
After that, Mike, what'd you go off and do?
Well, I became a monk.
Well, I don't think so, Mr. Sportsnet.
Yeah, it's amazing how careers do change and the way things, sort of the approach. I kind of got tired of the voiceover community. I mean, Garnet knows. I mean, we've talked about this. When I first got involved, when Garnet and I went to our very first FAFCon.
Yep.
Wide-eyed, and just everything about the VO community and just that whole, sandwich. And I just got really tired of it. And I think part of it was I loved doing voiceover. It was my full-time gig. But I got too much, and I wanted to sort of experience other stuff. And, this is my day job. I love my day job, but I don't want to talk about it all the time. And it just kind of got cynical. And as somebody who comes from a broadcasting background, and Garnet will attest to this, that it's very easy to get cynical and very easy to get jaded,
resentful.
It's just like, ugh. So, I kept doing what I'm doing, and I did some side stuff. I got to, kind of like Dave, filmmaking was not my thing. My thing as a kid was I wanted to be a professional wrestler, which was never in the cards with this body.
What are you talking about? You're fucking hot, bro.
Thanks, man. Yeah, the guns.
That's right.
Watch out. I'll get you.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, years and years ago, I did sort of dip into that world a little bit. And one of my really good friends lived that life. And, thanks to him, I got to play a little part of it too. So probably around 2016, 15, 17, 8, I don't remember what it is. It's on the IMDb. I got to work with the WWE, which at the time was super cool. And I got to work on a TV show. I got to write for a TV show, and it was the Edge and Christian the Edge and Christian show that totally reeks of awesomeness on the WWE network. I think it's still there. Neither of the guys are with them anymore, but that was a really cool experience. And that was cool. One of those things that, like you, Dave, it was something that I always wanted to do. The opportunity came up, and got to experience something that I've loved as a kid firsthand, and be part of that world, and not only meet people, but work with people that, I grew up watching, type thing. So that opened, that door opened, and I got to play in that world. And from strictly a voiceover sort of side of things, I just kept doing what I was doing, but I started to almost scale down. And, this goes back to that whole making relationships instead of
getting more focused, maybe.
Yeah, I started to realize that there were things that I loved to do, things that I didn't necessarily like doing. Shouts to Jody Krangle, who, to this day still, long form is not her bag. And she specifically made a career point of saying, I'm not doing anything longer than 5 minutes because it's not worth my time. And I take no joy in it. And I kind of got to that point with a lot of things, focused and narrowed. And, whether it was by my choice or just the way the universe sort of worked, I really kind of got slung into promo and imaging. And that became the big focus over the last, 7-10 years. And
you're crushing it. And I'm sick of hearing you. Because I'm watching a lot of Pluto TV right now. Your voice is ubiquitous on
that's
TV
a very
right
big
now.
word.
It is.
It's a very.
It is.
I'm using it.
Excuse me 1 second while I look it up.
Yes, please look it up. And that was, whether it's, again, geographical reasons. I mean, up in Canada, it seems like it's a lot easier to have access to promo work than it is in the States. It's also a completely different animal in the States with how they approach it. But most of that work was stuff that was based on relationships that had been fostered over a number of years. And, up here, like with any big company, unless you really, unless there's a major change at the top, unless there's a major creative direction change, if it ain't broke, don't bother fixing it. Right. And I think a lot of that plays into it, but it also got me into this rhythm of like, you know what, rather than try to shotgun blast all these different, job opportunities and clients, if I narrow my focus down and super serve the clients that I enjoy working with, B, who've been very good to me over the years, very loyal, why do I want to jeopardize that? Let's foster and nurture that and see where that goes. And that's where my sort of business philosophies have sort of taken me, in that I've watched producers who started out as junior producers that are now, senior management, that are getting awards for being, 30 under 30 or 40 under 40. And so for me, it's really cool. And these are people, Manoj. Yeah. Matt Manoj, shouts, buddy. This is what I enjoy. I feel like we've built relationships where, we can joke. I know these people to a certain extent. I don't feel like it's this arm's length client, service industry relationship that we have. And so that kind of perpetuated, this is what I enjoy doing. So I built all these relationships. So a lot of my daily work was promo and, some commercial stuff here and there. But again, very focused on the clients that I enjoyed working with and that enjoyed working with me, to the point where I didn't necessarily need to continuously shotgun blast auditions and try to find where my next meal is coming from, or chase some, project that I have no interest in. But that's how I find I'm the happiest. And to what Garnet was saying, the dream gig finally came true this past August. And it was the story behind it sort of accents or highlights what I was talking about building relationships, building the relationships and the connections. Because rewind to 2007, I think it was 2007, I was hired to be the voice of a sports network in Canada called The Score. I had worked with them for 5 years as the imaging voice, never had a contract, which if you say that to somebody online today, they're like, are you nuts? No, because the guy that I worked with from day one, we had a great relationship. It was a handshake agreement. Invoices went out, invoices got paid. The work was always there. And that was the kind of community that it wasn't so much that I was a freelance voiceover here and here's the station. I felt like part of the station, part of the team and all the producers. So stupid. Okay. Yeah. Not having a contract, whatever. Then in 2013, I think it was, they were bought out by a bigger conglomerate, Rogers Communications, who owned the number 2 at the time sports network, I think, which was Sportsnet. And unfortunately, usually when you are the buyee or the bought out person, you tend to get the old short end of the stick, which is kind of what happened. And they had their own imaging voice for the network. And my guy, Sam, was like, man, I'm sorry, this sucks, but I'm going over to the new company. And the second I can get you in to do something, I got you. And I was like, hey, man, it was a great run, whatever.
It's the nature of the business.
Mm-hmm.
That year, because of the deal that they had with their guy, there were certain things that he couldn't voice based on his contract. So Sam's like, I got a guy. So I got in with Rogers, with Sportsnet at that time, doing other things like doing one-offs or promoting like the Honda Indy in Toronto or, curling, stuff like that. And I had been with them, through 2013 up until, 2023, just doing that. And it was great. And I wouldn't do stuff for the competing network. And I made that very clear that the other company, TSN, I would get auditions from my agent and I'd be like, yeah, sorry, can't do it. You know, I would get hired for stuff and I'd be like, can't, sorry. And they'd be like, why? You don't have a deal with them. I'm like, no, but I have there's a bit of loyalty there.
Right.
So I had my buddy reach out and said, hey, if this ever opened up, would you be interested? And I said, sure.
Well, maybe.
Of course. And then a couple months later, somebody else from the company reached out to me and was like, hey, we've got this thing for the Blue Jays that we'd like you to audition for. It would be doing all the promos for the season. I'd be like, hey, that's awesome. Great. Love it. It came down to me and one other dude and I didn't get it. Didn't think anything of it. I'm still doing stuff. I'm still doing the Grand Slam of curling. You know, these are still my peeps. And then, you know, the heavens parted and an opportunity opened up. The vice president of programming went to him and was like, we're going to make a change. Have you got somebody? And he goes, as a matter of fact, I do. I've got this guy that I wanted to hire for the Blue Jays, but they ended up going with the other guy, this guy, Mike Pongracz. And he goes, really? Well, the vice president of programming was also the program director at the old sports network. And he knew me.
There you go.
And so it was this very amazing.
It was serendipitous, Mike.
It really was. And it was full circle. And then, August of last year, I took over as the promo voice for the #1 sports network in Canada. And that's the dream job. Like every morning I get up, I don't have to drive to Toronto, which is amazing. As much as I love Toronto, I come down into my booth and I am talking about sports and what's coming up tomorrow and what's coming up today. And, you know, the Jays are playing this and the Leafs are playing this. Like I'm doing intros for Hockey Night in Canada, which as a kid growing up in Canada, aside from playing in the game, this is like the next best thing. So yeah, it's been the dream gig. And if this is all I do from here on in, I'm good. You know,
Nice.
That's amazing, Mike. And sincere congratulations on that, because I know I remember you talking about that, you know, in conversations and things like that. And when I saw you post about it, I was like, yes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
I was so proud of you.
There was when I had signed my contract. This one actually I had to have a contract because there's lawyers and stuff. So I get vacation time. Like this is like I've never had a VO gig where I get documented. You get this much time off every year. I'm like, okay,
that's great.
Cool. But it was the conversation was okay. We're going to get started in August. I said, if I may. The first thing I would like to do is record the disclaimer that runs in front of WWE Monday Night Raw. And the guy's like, really? I'm like, yes, because obviously my ties to WWE and to my buddy Adam and everything that I got to do with them. When I was with the Score, the WWE was exclusive to the Score. And one of the coolest things for me was getting to do the disclaimer: the following program may contain scenes that are not suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised before wrestling. And I always thought that was the greatest thing. When Rogers overtook the Score and the Score became Sportsnet 360 and WWE was still on there, the first time it really hit me that I was no longer part of this new part of the sports thing was when I heard the Jim do the disclaimer. And that was like, that was the one where I was like, it's real now. Like I'm no longer part of this. It was the gut punch. So getting the opportunity to flip the script and do that, the first time I heard it in front of a Monday Night Raw, I was like, yes, full circle.
It's almost like in some sort of way you're taking what is rightfully yours back.
It was a 10-year circle. And it was, again, Dave, you've been through this. I've been through this where you get to work with a station and then just times come and changes are made and there's nothing.
It happens.
Personal.
Well, listen, I mean, I was the promo voice of a network here in Canada for many years, and then you took over.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, it's very cyclical, and that's why it's never personal.
It's never like there are times where somebody will, you're great and you're there and everything's great, but then it's like in sports where they bring in a new general manager and the general manager is like, I just want to bring in my own guy, so he gets rid of the coach. Nothing wrong.
And that's what it is. This happened. I will say 95% because of the relationship that I had built with key figures, and good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We're just going to keep doing this as long as we can, and then retire to Florida. I mean, that's the end game, right?
That is
there you go.
Good story right there.
It is.
So when we started this reunion, we had no idea we were going to talk as long as we did. In true AmiVO fashion, that means we're splitting this into 2 episodes. Double the AmiVOs, cost to you, free. In the next ep, I'll fill you in on what I've been doing the last 7 years, and the 3 of us will share our thoughts on the voiceover industry and the changes that we've all seen and felt pre and post-COVID. Join us, won't you?
We are finished. We are over. It's over.
The AmiVO's and Friends Super-Funtastic Happy Hour VOdcast has been brought to you by the 3 AmiVO's.
Show's over.
It was written, recorded, edited, and produced from deep within the Great White North by Dave McRae, Garnet Williams, and Mike Pongracz.
Are we going bye-bye?
For more AmiVO fun, questions, or comments, check us out online at 3amivos.com. On Twitter at the 3 AmiVO's. Until next time.